everybody. Can you all hear me in Zoom land? We have a few people on Zoom. Hi. We have lots of friends on Zoom. And okay, so thank you for coming to the Data Science for Social Justice presentation. This is the spring cohort. We have lots of presentations, so I'm just gonna jump straight ahead, and then I'm just gonna let people kind of introduce themselves as they come up for their talks and their teams. So as everybody knows, this is like 20 plus like faculty and staff and this, and like 20 something students and volunteers. So there's a lot of people. I can't tell you how grateful I've been and like how much I've learned from all of this. So I'm just gonna the agenda. I'm just gonna give an overview, if so, let's just probably got time. So she's gonna give me some hand signals, and maybe you can see there, and then it's like a little bit less. Yeah, time. So she's gonna like give us like 5-minute warning, 0-minute. Hi, Dan. I'm Laura. And so we're gonna I'm gonna give an overview, and then we're gonna go like 2 groups, 5 minutes each, and then like 10 minutes for like Q&A for the 2 groups, so that it's not like so interrupted. So it's gonna be like 2, and then Eleanor is gonna close it off and then just open it up for like a general Q&A, right? Okay. So with that, just my quick overview. So I'm Sarah Lenardi. I'm the PI for this Pitt Seed project. And why are we interested in this? Why did we do this project? So the motivation is there are 3 major strategic activities that is going on in the school. So like the Office of the Provost has the Responsible Data Science at Pitt with Mike Colorsi there leading it. And I stole this from his slide, which is the mission is empower responsible use-driven data science across the breadth of university for societal challenges. We also have the plan for Pitt, and then primarily one of the main program is to create better learning experiences. And one of it is prioritizing student skill development in communications, leadership, data analysis, and collaboration, and intercultural competency. And then we have the Office of Engagement and Community Affairs. And one of their main thing is to nurture the development of sustainable partnerships that build a reciprocal process for community identified priorities, right? So I highlight these few things that are part of this data science for social justice thing: responsible use-driven data science across your university, student skill development and teamwork, and working on community identified priorities in a sustainable way. Okay, so there's an opportunity here in the intersection of all of these 3 big strategic strategic push. Okay, so right now there's a gap. If we want to connect communities with student learning, there is a gap in the current infrastructure. So the community wants to solve practical problem. The students want grades and good work experiences. The community has an open timeline, the students by semester. The community don't really care about disciplines, and the students are educated in a single discipline. And then the context is very important for the community, and the student has little context. And if we fill this out between the student and the community, you can fill it out with faculty experiential learning units, capstones, or like the unit that Emily leads at Sky, or university intermediary like WPRDC or the CEC. But there is still a gap there. If you look at the timeline, there is a block of people who are on a semester timeline. There's a block of people who has an open timeline. And there are people who don't really care about discipline, but are not primarily student facing. And the one that are student facing cares about discipline, right? So there's a gap there in terms of bridging this timeline across semesters and bridging disciplines. Okay, so because we don't have this bridge, currently community engagement student learning could be really taxing. Like you could spend a lot of time working on, the community members could spend a lot of time working with classrooms and have products that are not useful to them. So for example, usually for each capstone, you have to meet with the student group weekly. So that's like an hour. So for a semester, that's 15 hours working with a student group. And say if this organization wanted, something built, they work with a computer science course for 15 hours and got some code, and they work with like a policy analysis class for 15 hours and they got some analysis, and then they work with a design class for 15 hours and they got some design. But then they have all these pieces they have to put together by themselves, right? So what we're proposing is something different, where we do a lot of the work. This ecosystem here does a lot of the work of integrating it. So what is this project trying to do? We want to build an infrastructure across Pitt to incubate student-driven, community co-created, and practical data science for social justice projects. So what is the outcome? We will get bottoms-up data science project, right? So data science project that the community generated from the community priorities, prototyped by the students. So these are things that students are interested in with community feedback. And then they can be refined into research by faculty. So for example, one of the members here, Michael Hamilton's been doing a lot of that for our projects. So because the focus is on usable product, you have to have this interdisciplinary collaboration, right? So it like forces it upon the structure. So for example, if you want to make a web platform that the community wants, you need lived experience, you need data collection, you need policy people, you need data architecture, UX design, algorithm, stats, content writing, all of that stuff have to be together. And then the method is design thinking, a lot of, how the community use this thing, and then agile development process. So you get features, focuses on features, quickly delivered, quickly tested, quickly reiterated. So the community members see immediate value, and the students are seeing their product move little by little. So they develop a long-term commitment to the project. Okay. All right. So workflow. So for one example, I'm giving two quick examples of the workflow as we have so far. This is the Allegheny County project. So you have community request here from an organization in McKeesport and a national organization for a police contract library. It goes into like our ecosystem here. So the main piece of this ecosystem is a Friday meeting every noon that has been going on for 3 years. So for 3 years, Hannah and Emmeline and Ivy and lots of people, the students here have led a Friday meeting at noon where anyone can come. And so different members of this community have shown up there with community members and kind of discuss and scope projects together. And through this process, you split up sub-projects that can be done in classrooms. So they say, this should go to computer science. This should go to digital narrative interactive design. This should go into a policy class. And then the products go back into this ecosystem, which then integrates it and produce something that is legible. My favorite word. And this go into the community, and it attracts other members of the community who are like, I see that, I understand what it does, I want to use it. And then this then keeps iterating through semester to semester. I think we've had like 18 classes in 3 years, right? Like 13 capstones or something like that. And you can have a paper. So we publish a paper with the students. You can have, so Casa San Jose end up developing a web platform based on the design of our web platform with our volunteer data lead as part of that. So collaboration between nonprofits and the students end up writing a report to the UN on the status of policing in Allegheny County and submitted that, and are holding an event at the Hill CEC with community members this Monday at 6 p.m. Is that right? You can ask Emmeline all about it. Okay, so that's one workflow. And it's iterative. So like every semester, you have a community organization, you ask question, how can we help? And then you do something, and then the questions get refined semester to semester, from help to helping people navigate misconduct complaint to collecting data. So the questions just keep iterating. And you produce output that adapt with the evolution of the project. Okay. This looks different for different products, right? For different questions from the community. So for example, for our other project, 412 Connect, which came from data for Black Lives and Community Forge, saying a lot of Black-owned businesses doesn't have any exposure to the university community, and they need help with social media. This was during the pandemic. We then went to Lena's ESDI Summer Intensive, where this all got kind of firmed up into an actual project, and they gave us our startup fund to hire computer scientists for our summer internship, which then became a product, the first launch of our Black-owned business scavenger hunt with Riverside Center for Innovation. We ran that once, and then the next time we worked with Homewood CC for a second version of this Black-owned of the scavenger hunt, and now it was with Homewood businesses. It went to CMU, Jess, thank you, Jess. And then it went into the CMU Center for Shared Prosperity Fellowship, came up with a Homewood scavenger hunt, and then it went to Kara and her food politics costs, and it changed direction entirely. And Kara will tell you more about that. It went from something that was a scavenger hunt that we created for students to a scavenger hunt that was an experiential learning, like an educational experience in creating the scavenger hunt within classrooms. So from that, we re-engineered it, sent it to the CMU Information Science Consulting course. And they're planning a scam, I'll let them tell you about it, but something on the Pittsburgh food chain. And then it went to the CSR incubator through Michelle, which then went to Tyler into anthropology of food to become a new scavenger hunt of Asian ethnic food establishment to teach the ethnography of, sorry, what was it? It was cultural anthropology. That's right, Goldman, all right. Right, exactly, yes. So, so things grow. that's the point. It grows. If there was an ecosystem here in the middle that is maintained, things grow and grow and grow. And if you allow the students to take it in whichever direction they want, and then you tell people in different fields about it, and you have a place where interest gets nurtured into actual product, things grow. So so see how student entry point comes in. Here's Kiara here. So she started assisting with the Homewood CEC launch. And then when she took a class on food politics, she was like, hey, this could be an alternative use of this platform. And so she then drives this process. And then we all line up behind her and we say, Kiara, what techniques do you have? And so this then goes into CMU and Pitt to do the tech development for her. So just like, this is one way students can enter. So what we're connecting the community, which has the issue, the university intermediary, which has the initial scope of the people involved and how the issue should be thought of. So this would be something that Bob will talk about, and how WPRDC helped us start a working affordable housing working group. And then the experiential learning unit, which are the capstone, right, which has a structure for how the student work should be, to the faculty, which has the disciplinary expertise, and the students who are working on the issue. Right, so this is why it's all connecting. I can go back to this later after Eleanor about what we have and what we need. But we have a bunch of stuff that is working. We still need a whole bunch of stuff. Like, we need to be more plugged into various units from the students. We need formal career development and help for the students. So Julia's going to talk about some of that. We need faculty serving functions, grants, and research. Michelle's going to talk about that. We need funding and we need a formal structure. And then where we fit, I stole this from Mike's. I stole this from Mike's talk. I just took a picture from it. So under the provost office, they are creating a structure for communities of practice, and Mike can tell you more about what communities of practice look like. But the Associate Vice Provost of Data Science is Mike, and then he's thinking about this organization where there will be communities of practice on like different issues, where each of them have educational liaison, research liaison, etc. In our case, also a community liaison, and I think I've said a lot, but like, let me just go straight to the talks, and then we can all return to this various big picture pieces. Okay, with that, I pass this on to Bob.
Line is joining me here because I don't want to be alone up here. She's been great to work with. I love the work that you've done, Emmeline. And Magda Gangwar is really instrumental too in getting us off the ground last semester. So we wanted to see if we could create a new independent student in class project for affordable housing. I don't know if you want to talk about this.
So I really think this project is so when we're thinking about starting this up, we wanted to learn more about affordable housing. So we thought, why don't we use what we built so far, which is these anyways. And yeah, so we got together some students. Magda, who Bob mentioned, was a student leader the first semester, last semester, who has a lot of knowledge in this area. So she kind of got it running, and then I took over this semester to help going.
Yeah, and it's been fun to be part of it.
Yeah.
And some of the accomplishments that we've had 3 projects come out of the independent group, plus a couple of other course projects tied to affordable housing that we were kind of able to bring into the conversation. So the first one, I think, is one that you've been working on, land recycling analysis with Ann Lewis and the Tricog Land Bank. And speaking of Ann Lewis, I actually accidentally walked into her class just now. We had students working from Carnegie Mellon with the Data Science for Social Good group that connected with the work that we had done through the Western Pennsylvania Regional Data Center on housing preservation, helping to build out a tool for a property watch list for subsidized housing. So making sure that people are aware of if subsidies are set to expire or if condition might result in subsidies being pulled. Third project is with Sarah and pulling data on tangled titles together based on some work that we've done in the past. Issues of people passing their properties to relatives without a title can be a real headache and might really inhibit the ability for somebody to actually sell the property, get a loan to repair the property and things like that. So there's data that can be used as part of an outreach process. And then some other projects that we've been able to do with Dr. Rahamian from IE, and then Dr. Burton over at MLIS program at Sky. And in just doing this stuff, what we learned was that student and community projects often rely on a hidden gift economy. And this is like the world that I live in, doing favors, never saying no to meetings. It takes its toll. But it works because you can actually we in those favors and build a lot of trust and kind of build social capital. But that's something that we've had to explain to people here on campus, is the importance of we built a lot of effort into these relationships, and you need to make sure that you maintain that trust that we've been able to develop through all the favors and all the work that we do. We're happy to kind of extend that relationship, but we just want to make people know about that responsibility that they have. It's also really important to understand student and classroom needs. Can't come to somebody in August and say, I need a project that starts for our class in September. This is something that Nora's going to talk about in a little bit, some of the ideas that we've talked about there. Community organizations also don't quite understand how to manage expectation for university projects. They see it as a big monolith, and it's really important to kind of talk about what they might expect from different types of engagements. And the sustainability really depends on dedicated support to build relationships, identify and curate project opportunities, and connect students and faculty with each other and some of those project opportunities. So this is what the future looks like in my mind. And I'm going to drag this picture out of the way just to show you that there are a little more happy faces. So on the left, kind of this is the world that I've been living in for a long time. You could tell, because I'm old. Government, community organizations, and coalitions with data and tech needs. So like meeting with the Digital Equity Coalition, thanks to Lena Distilio pulling me into that conversation. Meetings that we have with the city and the county, the Black Equity Coalition, a lot of housing preservation groups, and all sorts of other things. We're there because we can provide training and technical assistance. We don't say no to things. We're providing data and a help desk, and we're consulting on projects. So that's the stuff that's the space that we know pretty well. And then there's people at the university community on the far right that are like, students and faculty that want to really work on a lot of social justice projects. And the challenge is really kind of connecting people from the community side, from university side, these big projects that we've been able to work with over a decade. Everything from independent studies to class projects to capstones, internships, and you could read up there. So there's a lot of stuff, but things that are really important are finding a way to provide these services and support them, providing these kind of intermediary roles so you can connect with people at the university community, like curating an idea that comes out of a community, making a match to the right type of project opportunity and the right type of your student or faculty member, and then setting the expectations of what to expect from working with students. And then the intermediary roles on the other side, I'm not going to steal Nora's thunder on this, but thinking about capacity and the needs of class projects, matchmaking, what is a good fit for an internship versus, a class project versus an independent study, thinking about training and technical assistance so that members of the university are well equipped to work in community settings. And then thinking about the importance of organizing people on campus through efforts like this. So that's what the future looks like in my mind. Scary. What'd you say? A little bit? Come on. I would. Everything's scary. So that's, did I miss anything? Okay, it's like stuck. Yeah.
You want us to stay up here?
Hi everyone, I'm Nora Mattern from the School of Computing and Information, and I'm speaking on a project that was done in collaboration with Emmeline and Bob's effort. So we thought about the lessons learned from getting a project off the ground, a new project off the ground, and we thought about how we could support the initiation of a new community partnered, university partnered educational project that would be facilitated through DS4SJ. So we spent summer trying to learn about some of the challenges that folks who have been part of data science for social justice projects, specifically the amazing graduate students and undergraduate students who have served as project managers, what have they learned about really effective relationships between university classes and community partners. We also gathered some of the intermediaries together, including the WPRDC and folks from DS4SJ, to talk about really a timeline that the shape of getting a project off the ground for a class or for a fellowship. When should it begin? What questions should be asked at the start of the project? Again, how do you avoid designing a university experience that ends up actually being extractive for the community partner? We also had a session with Dr. Aaliyah Durham, who's at Pitt School of Social Work, and Liz Monk, who is at the University Center for Social and Urban Research, again, to build our understanding of what makes for an effective project experience for both sides of the team.
And we thought quite a bit coming out of those conversations about principles of community engaged pedagogy and education. And I really want to acknowledge the work of Dr. Durham in this space, who offered a really cogent overview of characteristics of really thoughtful, again, non-extractive, community engaged or partnered pedagogy. So she talked quite a bit about having clarity on the purposes at the start of a project, really thinking about the bidirectional benefits that would characterize the project, designing equitable partnerships, designing a relationship or supporting a relationship in which there's shared decision making, and also decisions about how outputs would be handled at the end of the project. Who has custody of those outputs? Who has access of those outputs? And Dr. Durham also talked quite a bit about, and I know this is really a core principle to DS4SJ, but having a long-term commitment to the community partners that are engaged through the efforts here. I also am so glad Lena's here because we also built in passwords. So I'm a librarian by training, and in 2018 I was at the university library system here when we were developing some guidance for data sharing practices in community partnered or engaged research projects. And we developed what we called a conversation checklist that walked through some questions that are important, that we learned through focus groups with community-based researchers and university researchers that are really core to work through or important to work through at the start of a project. And through this effort, we adapted this checklist for an educational focus. So as you might imagine, some of the considerations were similar in having discussions at the start, but we developed a checklist that could support the start of a conversation when, if a faculty member, for example, is interested in developing a capstone that involves a community partner. We imagine within this model that DS4SJ could help facilitate a conversation, either serving as a liaison to the community or bringing in a community representative to work through these questions at the start of a project. So if you're interested, I watched them late, so I don't know if these slides have been circulated, but I bet they will be. There is a link that is really very much a first version of this checklist of questions to consider when initiating a project. But again, we imagine that this checklist might be something that is worked through at the start, again, well, actually well in advance, at least a semester in advance, based on what we learned in discussion. So in advance of the semester, to work through, again, decisions about equitable partnership. So just a quick overview of what this would look like, or this looks like currently. We have some guidance around how to connect with DS4SJ, when to connect with DS4SJ. Again, not in August before the semester. We're suggesting the semester ahead. Questions to work through when determining benefits, mutual benefits in a project. Questions to work through when determining roles that each player will take on and responsibilities. Questions to work through when determining communication and collaborative strategies from things like, is Pitt's OneDrive the best option for working with people who are external to Pitt? Does that set up a barrier? Considerations around authorship and credit. If something comes out of a project, how is attribution handled? And then considerations around how project materials will be shared or made available or stewarded for the long term. So I'm really eager to get some feedback. This again is the first draft, but perhaps we can circulate this afterwards. So thanks. I see a chat. So are we doing a question? Oh, we have one more thing, right, about a website we talked about. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we've spent kind of an hour wireframing a website for DS4SJ and thinking about how a website might be used to articulate guiding principles, thinking about Dr. Durham's principles, for example, and other things we've learned through this work. So guiding set of principles for community engaged educational projects here at Pitt. A website that inventories that typology that Bob and Emmeline developed of different educational experiences and pathways. Like if you wanted to do a capstone, here's a pathway, and then guidance and workflows for faculty. And that's where maybe the checklist would be included. I don't know if there's anything more to say on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we thought of it, I think we were calling it like the marketplace or something, as like just a resource that people could come to when thinking about community partnered projects, like where to start, what to think about. Because as many of you know, these are very like dispersed things all across campus. There isn't like one place where you can come to and find resources on this. So we were really thinking of this as like a place where we could house those resources and sort of centralize them. That sounds good.
Oh, thanks, Ashlyn. Ashlyn's circulating the slides. Please. Thanks. Thanks so much, Michelle. And I really want to acknowledge the DS4SJ or CASI project managers, because they had this just wealth of ideas about what really needs to be clarified at the start of the project, what are some pitfalls that folks have encountered in the past. So there are some folks in this room and on the chat who have helped us think through this through. So thank you.
I wonder if you thought about like how you can quantify the amount of time that both community partners and faculty members need to invest in moving this forward, because I think like there's a lot of pressure from the university, like pressure in a good sense, but pressure from the university to do more community engaged experiential learning opportunities for students. I manage one out of the Johnson Institute. We have a full-time staff person to help administer it. Most faculty don't have that. And so like what are the demands on a faculty member? And then what are the demands on the community that are maybe also not being compensated? I think that would be an interesting component if you like as a future thing.
I totally agree.
But I can stay for the time. So when I just
maybe we could get some estimate of time from folks who have served. So I guess it would be like, interesting to quantify the time for managers within CASI, the folks who are serving as the liaisons. Maybe they can estimate the time. Their faculty who have been part of some of the policing projects efforts. Maybe we could start building that. That's a really good point, Julia. Yeah.
Well, the intermediaries too are like critical to it, but often suffer from funding challenges, right? So I'm looking at that, like if we're saying, okay, the faculty doesn't have to do all of this because the intermediaries can do it, then are we like supporting the intermediaries as well?
Right. Yeah.
For those kind of partnerships. Or come to say, how can we market?
Thank you. All right, just trying to see here. All right. Okay, so my thanks to Sarah for inviting me to this, and I think it's where I put this together. I think it'll be useful because I don't think anyone knows our center exists. So, so I'm Michelle Vasquez. I'm the director of the Center for Ethnic Studies Research here at Pitt. It's brand new. We've been in operation maybe a year and a half through the University Center for International Studies, through UCIS. And so my colleague Sarah, we've been talking a lot this year about the important connections between our two centers. So the mission of the center.
Is it?
I don't know.
Let me make sure that we're.
Oh, it's just, yeah, I think so.
It is sharing? Okay.
Yeah, on this side it says stop. I mean, like there's a button to stop share, so it's sharing. Okay. Okay, good. Well, they can all hear. So the mission of the Center for Ethnic Studies Researchers, or CESR, as we call ourselves, is to advance multidisciplinary and collaborative research in ethnic studies. So looking at specifically Latinx, Asian American, Native American, African American, and U.S. African diaspora communities. And as you know, the mission of CASI is to find innovative solutions to address social justice and solve community challenges through designing and implementing solutions in data science. Let's see, on my button. Okay. So both of the centers have proven their ability to enhance student and faculty development and to build community. So these are just a few examples I want to highlight about our projects and programs. So I'll start with CSR. So we have the Pittsburgh Transformations Project, which is a multidisciplinary collaborative study that looks at the historical and contemporary struggles. We're focusing on 3 communities this time. We're in the middle of the project on Latinx, Asian American, African American / Black immigrants here in Pittsburgh, looking at the through lines of race and migration, education, and healthcare. We also have been running this faculty collaborative research incubator, which is where, that's not where I met Sarah, but where we finally got the chance to actually talk more. that connects Pitt scholars with complementary interests in ethnic studies to cultivate those collaborations between them and then accelerate their success in garnering internal and external funding for their research. No, it's okay. Oh, please. So that's what's going on in the Center for Ethnic Studies research side, our projects with the community and with faculty, collaborative research. And of course, you're very familiar with CASI's Brief to Action project with the data science social justice ecosystem. And so as we've been talking and thinking about this, we said, you know what, we got a lot of stuff in common, a lot of things going on that we're not trying to be competing, but we're taking different approaches, but we're really looking at a lot of the same kinds of arenas. So some of them include, like, we're both working in partnership with underrepresented communities in Pittsburgh, both looking at offering experiential learning opportunities for students, offering opportunities for faculty to do collaborative work together. We're also working with the same university center partners
which include the Center for Race and Social Justice, Gabby's here, as well as the Center for Race and so the Center for Civil Rights and Racial, is that right? Center for Civil Rights and Racial Justice, and the Center for Race and Social Problems. There's so many acronyms. And so we've been working together on some projects over this past year. So Cassie and our mutual partners they've been involved in the Ethnic Studies Collaborative Research Incubator with CSR, and then our partners have been participating in Cassie's Center Strategic Planning Cohort. We also been connecting we also plan to connect through the Pittsburgh Transformations Project through the digital, for our digital components, and that'll be through Cassie's capstone classes in data science for social justice. And then Sarah is working with Tyler, whom she met in our incubator program on a collaborative work in the Asian American experience. So we're really excited about all the overlap and connections that have been happening. So we decided, let's see, am I going backwards now? Okay, there we go. So we realized that with all this overlap, that we needed to just join forces. It didn't make any sense. It doesn't make sense for us to do everything completely separately when we have so many common elements. So our plan is to create a CSR Cassie project incubator to bring the voices and perspectives of communities of color in Pittsburgh into the research, teaching, and service arenas. And so together we plan to create ongoing exchanges between qualitative and quantitative methods, opportunities for students to use their university training and real world engagement, and build strategic research partnerships among faculty in ethnic studies and data science. So I'm really here, I think, to just ask, just to get feedback about this, because Cassie has done so much. Like when I learned about it, and also the limited level of infrastructure that they have available to do it, I was both amazed and horrified all at the same time. I mean, I say that because I'm at USIS, which has 7 regional area study centers, and ours is the first that's based in the US. And so so there's like budget lines for faculty and all these kinds of things. And we have 8 to 10 students working with us. And I was just like, but you have, and I have a course release. I was like, what? You're teaching a full load and doing all these things? This is ridiculous. Well, but that's what I'm saying. Like everyone's doing the work. So everyone's time is valuable. And so everyone should receive some kind of compensation for their work. I mean, that's my ethos. I can't. There are spaces to volunteer, absolutely, but there are also things where the work is still the work, and our time is valuable. So all that to say, we're working on a big grant that will allow us to bring our 2 centers closer together in the work that we do, to really kind of commingle, interconnect all aspects of it. Because I thought, well, it would be great for maybe our second level of the incubator for those who've already been through it, who've already begun to know each other, to think about how they connect with, especially if they're doing digital projects, how they connect more with the data science side and vice versa. So it's still mingling in my mind about what we should do, but we're already been thinking about what kind of staff do we need? What kind of blueprint do we need to go forward to make this all happen? And so we'll be developing that, but we certainly welcome observations, especially since CSR is so new to all of this, about any kind of feedback or suggestions. So we're open to that. So I'm going to stop there, and thank you all very much. Let's see, where's this one here? Just see what's going on in the, okay, that's just already taking care of that, thankfully.
Yeah, I think one thing that came out through our station. We're dealing with sort of structural barriers. I think there's a lot in terms of conversations, kind of just sort of like how to compensate properly during a lot of labor, how to compensate students, get excited about the work, but whether it's I think you spent a lot of time. The process. And to create a process that then made it more realistic.
Hi, I'm Kiara Jimenez. I've been working with Dr. Keishimizu in Gispia. She's not able to join us here today, so she recorded a little video on our 412 Connect food politics.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Keishi Mizu, faculty member in Gispia, and I'd like to talk briefly about my effort this semester to incorporate 412 Connect into my class on food politics, which has been taught over the past couple of years in both political science and in Gispia. Specifically, I've been trying to extend the 412 Connect infrastructure, specifically the scavenger hunt within 412 Connect for teaching social justice, or in my case, food justice. Why 412 Connect? I see 4 very strong and enticing reasons why the scavenger hunt is particularly suitable for teaching food justice. 1, it builds on existing infrastructure. The scavenger hunt is well built and exists online. It also facilitates versioning, that is, students across multiple semesters and multiple years will be able to build upon knowledge gathered by students that have come before them. 412 Connect also facilitates experiential learning by allowing students to interact with the community stakeholders. In my case, students will be asked to go out into the community and find a food-related establishment to be added to the list of establishments within the scavenger hunt. These establishments will then be projected onto an interactive map, which will also integrate multimedia, such as podcasts, interviews, and other trivia questions related to the scavenger hunt. The map, of course, also creates spatial awareness, which is very important in understanding food justice, especially issues on food access. And lastly, the 412 Connect scavenger hunt allows ample opportunity for data generation and analysis. How do students, as well as the broader public who come to play the scavenger hunt, increase their awareness of food establishment locations or pricing or nutrition or access? All of this data can be easily analyzed the more people will play the scavenger hunt. Let me briefly introduce to you the 5 components that were built this semester to facilitate this effort. First, of course, is the class assignment. Again, the assignment asks students to add food-related establishments to the scavenger hunt that pre-exists already on the 412 Connect website. There was also a user guide for students that was made in the form of a slide deck that teaches students how to set up new establishments in the class scavenger hunt. There were several websites for both playing and modifying the scavenger hunt, including a landing page, an about page, and a learn more page. There's also an interactive map, which allows the identification of all scavenger hunt establishments geospatially. And lastly, there is a social justice assessment of the whole program that was done by a gender studies class, GSWS 1140. And I'll have Kiara explain that to you a little bit at the end of this presentation. This is the assignment specifics for creating a class scavenger hunt, as it will be done in my class beginning in the spring of 2024. And I'll just leave that up there as part of the slide deck for those who are interested in how specifically I'll be assigning this particular component to students in the class. I want to spend just a few seconds here iterating some remaining challenges in integrating 412 Connect to this class. For, of course, my class will be using it in the spring of 24, but the idea is to have invite interest from other instructors so that the scavenger hunt could expand very quickly, not just in the number of establishments, but also geospatially. More specifically, hopefully that map will expand beyond Pittsburgh to Pennsylvania, to the United States, and eventually globally. It's also important that we are able to make the data science component of this effort more explicit, how to collect additional data that can be analyzed in this aspect. We'd like to also further strengthen the interdisciplinary experience. How do we use multiple disciplines to analyze and also understand the stakeholders' perspective within the framework of food justice? And lastly, one remaining challenge that's beyond the class is how to maintain troubleshooting support, especially the technical part of it, throughout the longevity of this program. So I'll stop here and give the floor over to Kara, who will talk about the social justice assessment. Thank you.
Thanks again, folks, for yeah, I mean, maybe we can clap for Dr. Simmons, he's the best. But let's see, I'm still sharing this. I was just gonna say the one slide that you was so there is also the social justice assessment, which is basically about I'm taking a food justice course in the GSWI department, and our final assignment for the semester was to analyze an organization or an establishment here in Pittsburgh and see how they're embedding food justice into their practices. I've copied and pasted from Canvas exactly so you can see word for word what my professors asked of us. And so I'm working with two other group members and we're developing it. And the whole point of it is that we're articulate the components of it, and really like they're genuinely saying here behind CPR, you do this research, and all these other really relevant topics. And so we're just putting in our into what future iterations might look like, including maintaining principles as well as again a lot of businesses and creating community awareness of them and stuff. We've got to identify other versions which might be worthwhile to also create not just for us a clear application language, etc. Hence the work with our council collaboration and then also we're doing this location-based work, and so that really came a lot from the course of staking and then studies, and also from my course as I work with Dr. Shimizu, and that's that we're doing this launch on the Oakland Food State, for those of you who don't know, means food and cultural landscape. So entertaining a launch that really allows students to work with the landscape and and also see that, like, wow, we live in the desert, and also just learn about it. Okay, I'm done. Bye.
We're just gonna hand it off to Nick for his first talk. I think maybe you can just I'm gonna hand it off. Let's try the audio from here because Les is not working. Nick, do you want to just say something so we can hear you?
Yeah, is this working?
Yeah, it's working.
All right, great.
So
Okay.
Go for it.
Wonderful, thank you. Just to maximize the sort of technical difficulties of running this entire meeting, thank you all very much. So I'm Nick Farnan. I am teaching faculty within the School of Computing and Information, and I'm talking about the software engineering work that we've done within the DS4SJ project. Can we move to the next slide, please? So within the CS program within Sky, all students are required to take a capstone project, and there are really four main ways that they end up doing this. By far, the most popular is to go on an academic internship where students will just get a job at some tech company and end up doing programming work for them over the course of the summer. In addition, we offer students a option to get research experience as an undergrad and use that directed research as the fulfillment of their capstone requirement. They could also go on a co-op. And as the final option, we have the CS 1980 project design course, which is where we've been using the drive that students have to be involved with social justice projects in order to provide a service to the community. And specifically, that's been currently with the ACP project. Can we move to the next slide, please? Wonderful, thank you. So again, this has been, as Sarah was talking about at the start of the presentation here, talking about bridging this gap between the needs of the community and the educational opportunities that we want to provide for students. And so we are, with the CS 1980 course, providing a service to the community, taking feature requests for this website and using CS 1980 students to implement them. On the other half of the equation here, this is enhancing the capstone experience for students, because this is giving them the opportunity to tackle projects that they are strongly invested in and going beyond what they would typically get as sort of the benefits of a capstone project, by giving them the opportunity to continue on after the first capstone and to take on leadership roles later on. So actually managing future capstone teams, starting to run meetings. And this is where this is providing, beyond the investment, and even greater experience in leadership that they might not have gotten otherwise. All right. I think this has been very successful. I'm primarily speaking here from the perspective of student experience, because that's what I'm most directly involved in day to day. But this has been a huge success. And so in regards to investment, what we've got here, and this is thank you, Ashlyn, for sharing the slides earlier so that this quote can stick around. I'm not going to read through the entire thing now, but I think some of the big points here was that we had a student who said they were cynical about the use of technology and the degree that they were pursuing, and being a part of this project and being able to invest their skills in helping out a social justice project made them much less cynical and made them hopeful about how technology can be used. And in terms of providing leadership opportunities, if we go to the next slide, this is just not an opportunity that a lot of students will get very often in their undergraduate. And so if you end up taking on an internship, you are very much just, here's what we need you to do, go do it. Don't think too much about the larger scale of what needs to be done, about planning, about running a meeting, about organizing goals. All of these things are going to become essential to take on a leadership role in wherever students find themselves after they graduate. And this is something that we're really able to give them an opportunity to do. And so I'm going to give a special shout out to Patrick, who has done some incredible work as a leader for the CS 1980 teams over the last 2 terms, to the point that, again, he's managing this sort of agile development, keeping track of what tasks need to be done. He's at this point running the meetings because, as I'm sure you're all aware, trying to schedule a meeting with 3 different undergraduate schedules and your own gets a little bit hectic. And so for this term in particular, the timing didn't, like, whenever they had gaps in their schedules, I had a class. And so Patrick has been doing a lot of starting off and running those meetings. And this is, again, a leadership opportunity that he wouldn't have gotten anywhere else. And so that's where I think this has been a huge success. And given the great changes and the improvements that have been able to be made to the website, I want to make a special thanks to our capstone teams. In fall 22, we had Lingfang, Anthony, Frederick, and Aaron. And then in spring 23, we have Luke, Thomas, and Tyler. And like I said, once again, I want to give special thanks to Patrick for all the work he's been doing in coordinating and providing leadership and getting the deliverables and the requests from the community done and implemented and pushed back out. So, yeah, thank you very much.
Actually, I'm able to share from here. All right, so Julie's gonna go now. Julie's gonna talk about her social justice student leader summit.
Go ahead, Julia.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'll be super fast. So this is part of the Data Science for Social Justice Student Resources track. And I was working with student leaders, Ivy Chang and Zara Glace. And so our goal was, we had 4 goals, so I'll let you read them up there, and I'll just talk a little bit more about our project. So we're building off work that my colleague Natasha had done last semester, trying to develop those leadership skills among our students, not only the students that are engaged in CASI work specifically, but looking at students engaged in social justice leadership more broadly across campus. And so we met weekly along with bi-monthly check-ins with Sarah and Trupti. And we wanted to cast a wide net when identifying student leaders working in social justice, because that can mean so many different things to so many different people. So Ivy had the brilliant idea to run a nomination process. And so I know we sent an email to all of you. We also sent an email to many other contacts across campus, requesting that people nominate students, undergraduate or graduate, didn't even have to go to Pitt. And so we ended up with 25 nominations from across campus, and we had 14 of those students register for the summit. So our summit was held yesterday, so it's all very fresh in my mind. And as I said, we had 14 students attend, 7 graduates, 7 undergraduates. So since this did just happen yesterday, I just wanted to share some quick highlights and challenges that students identified, and then a little bit more about what we're thinking next steps, recognizing we have not had the opportunity to fully debrief on this yet. So I think the biggest highlight was that students are doing amazing work across campus, and we had a really diverse group of students that are doing all sorts of different things, from working with middle school students on STEM education at the CEC to helping to rewrite university protocols and regulations here on campus through student government, and a lot of different things. So we heard from a range of different students doing amazing work. I think that was my biggest takeaway. And it's clear that they appreciated this opportunity to be recognized and to be heard. We had one student that's been working as an activist. She's a graduate student in the School of Social Work, and she said, I've been at Pitt for a year, and this is the first time anybody's ever asked me to speak at anything. So they were just excited to have the opportunity on the forum to be recognized, to be heard. We met our goal of creating a space for students to network. We heard networking literally happening across the room. Somebody said, I'm trying to do this as my next project, and somebody else had resources that would help her. Somebody was interested in applying for a CASI job, so hopefully that works out. So we really, I think, met that goal of creating a networking space, also of elevating CASI to students that maybe didn't know about it beforehand by bringing in students that aren't already engaged in the center. And one student specifically mentioned the role of data in supporting their work on social justice issues, especially in a university setting where big data matters to people and can be used to justify why we do this work. And so I thought that was really encouraging as we think about future next steps for CASI and for the Data Science for Social Justice. Okay, so then thinking about challenges, and I've grouped the students' challenges into 4 broad buckets. The first is one that we have already talked about, which is recognizing the value of their work. And so much like faculty and staff feel that their work is often undervalued in this space, students do as well. And we heard from them that they feel like this is something that they have to balance in addition to being a student and in addition to doing other paid work, because they're not getting paid for the work they're doing in the social justice space. And I'll say value of their work monetarily, but also some of them definitely gave the sense that they didn't think the university and university administration appreciated the value of their work as well. So that was kind of a twofold value sense. The second one is barriers. A number of students raised challenges related to what they called artificial barriers to their work, things like regulations getting in the way, or like individual personalities getting in the way, protocols, what I'll call bureaucracy. And of course, some of that is going to be natural in a university setting like this, which is a large bureaucracy. So I think when we think about future things, one thing that we can maybe work on is helping students understand how to navigate that effectively. Third bucket is well-being, related to specifically mental and emotional well-being. A lot of the students talked about how to take care of yourself emotionally when you're doing this work. And again, when you're trying to balance it with the many other things that you're doing. There were some identity-related aspects to that well-being as well that came out. And then finally, challenges related to communication, including communicating on charged and sensitive topics, communicating personal boundaries while still engaging in this work, and then working effectively with insiders. So this is, again, thinking about that. How do you communicate effectively to navigate the bureaucracy? Couple of pictures from our event yesterday. And then finally, just thinking about, next steps. We'd like to continue to foster this collaboration between the Johnson Institute for Responsible Leadership, which I direct, and Cassie to support student leaders working on data science for social justice. We wanted to use this summit as an opportunity to hear from the students about what they need so we could think about future trainings or workshops. I think based on some of those challenges that they identified, we should explore what we can do in the space of emotional well-being, mindfulness, managing stress, and also communication. Those seem like two quick win takeaways. And then we can, again, debrief and think more about long-term possibilities. And then just thinking about how we build on newly established norms of collaboration between our two centers, identities and routines. I mentioned I was having bi-weekly meetings with the student leaders. I think we could institutionalize that more to see additional collaboration. So I'll stop there.
This is Eleanor. People want to like wiggle a little bit because we've been sitting for 2 hours. So you totally understand. Right. All right.
Okay, so where are we landing?
Eleanor's wrapping it all up.
We're gonna wrap it up. There's
We're
gonna be a
wrap it
bow.
up. Yes.
It's gonna be great.
Go.
Okay, great. Is this?
Yes.
Okay.
I will admit this one.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you all. I'm glad to be here and speak a little bit about what I and my team members have been doing this year, which is that we've been trying to understand the work that the Data Science for Social Justice team and really ecosystem has been doing in terms of how is that work able to be sustained? What are the ways in which it is or is not kind of becoming institutionalized and integrated into the fabric of the university? So our kind of overview of what that looks like, we're thinking about this as a cross-disciplinary, community-engaged, social justice-centered model, and thinking about trying to understand what makes that sustainable. That's something that is relevant to a lot of university initiatives at a lot of different universities. So we see it as valuable in that way. We as researchers, which is me and 2 PhD students, colleagues, Ashton Salvage and Maria Alexia Zaragoza, are in a role of participant observers. We did a little bit of literature review related to similar initiatives in other contexts, and we collected data in the form of meeting observations like this one, and also interviews, one-on-one conversations with folks. We're in the midst of our data analysis process, but I'll give you a little kind of slice of what that looks like so far. So our research questions start with, in what ways does and doesn't the Data Science for Social Justice model show signs of what we might think of as kind of early stage institutionalization? What I mean by that is something is institutionalized if it's integrated into what I call self-sustaining structures. So things like routines, like policies, like norms, aspects of a setting that tend to be sustained and maintain themselves. And so is this project part of that? Is it in alignment? Is it integrated? Or is it working at cross purposes with those kinds of structures? Secondly, how does the university environment show signs of institutional stasis? So ways of that it's difficult to make changes within it. And then how does the environment that DS4SJ stakeholders are experiencing vary, whether that be by role, by discipline, or in some other ways. And so we're gonna, I'm gonna share a little slice of findings that are, I would say, kind of related to this third piece today. So one of the things that came out that was striking in sort of talking with folks within this ecosystem is how widely folks vary in their degree of sort of centrality or engagement within the ecosystem. And that variation also contributes to different abilities to kind of contribute to the longevity or institutionalization of the work. So I'll give you some examples of this. So at what I would think of as kind of the periphery of the ecosystem, there are folks who, Sarah spoke about just how many people have been engaged in this work in some form or another over time. And many of those folks, when we talked to them, said like, yeah, data science for social justice does great work, but that's not really my work, right? Like I don't have an active role in that. I don't see myself as part of this in an ongoing way. So we would kind of think of those folks as incredibly valuable assets within the ecosystem, but not necessarily helping with that in a position to help with sustaining it, right? Because they're just sort of too peripheral for that role. Then kind of a little bit more in the middle, there are folks, there are folks, thank you, who are really eager to support the work, and they're doing it, but they're doing it above and beyond their primary responsibilities at significant kind of personal cost, right? It's like my extra time that I don't have, the time that I mean to be devoting to my other work, I'm now trying to send some of it this way, but it's hard to do, right? So someone said like, I just feel like I can't commit as much time to these projects as I want. And so I think of folks that are in this situation as providing powerful support for projects, but most likely this cannot continue in this way for the long term. There has to be either some kind of shift in what constitutes those folks' primary responsibilities, like, oh, now 20% of my time is paid for by this other thing, or some kind of shift in their role in the project, because people just can't do above and beyond forever, right? And then finally, there are some folks, and we found this among faculty, among staff, and among community members who really said, like, this is my work. This is the work that I do. Like, what is happening within data science for social justice is the work that I basically would be doing one way or another. And this creates a container for it. It creates a community for it. But it's really not above and beyond. It's really central to sort of my professional role and identity. And this, I think, is the group who perhaps offer the most promise from the perspective of, or power from the perspective of that sort of institutionalization process, because these are folks who are already situated in places that, the work of the project is their work. And so thinking about how to build up that group, build on the needs, build on and towards the needs of this group, I think is one way of thinking about moving forward. So as a sort of, provocation towards that end, I know there is this sort of question of what happens in the future. And one way I think we might think about that is what would additional funding look like if it were used either to shift people's ability to engage or to support deepened engagement for people who are actually already really well positioned to be doing this work. Okay.
Okay. If people have questions, or we can just, do you have people have questions for any of the speakers?
Will you be sharing that on the slides, emails?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
That was great. This is great. I don't have a question, but just a comment, especially on the last one. Like the networks is like my sweet spot, so I'd love to sort of see that round up.
All right. I mean, we'll just, meet people where it's, thank you for staying here. Like through all our tech thing, we did not expect that. Celeste has tested everything before, and I don't know. This room has quirks. Has quirks. She's tested everything. Everything was working. So thank you so much. Yeah.